Just record and start.
Wait.
Can you record this right now?
Okay. Yeah, we are here at the Utah County Convention that's going on right now. And we are wanted to interview Phil Lyman, who is one of the Republican gubernatorial candidates for the state of Utah. Hello, Phil.
Hello, thanks for having me. This is exciting.
Yeah, we decided to go old school, kind of feel like the Breakfast Club here.
General, yeah.
Like we'd be sluffing school and talking about civics and politics.
Because that's what we did back then.
Yeah. Anyways, Phil, thanks for joining us. Why don't you go ahead and just introduce yourself first? And for anybody who doesn't know, I know you've said this probably a million times
Yeah.
already within the past couple months, but maybe for somebody who doesn't know anything about you, what would you want them to know about you?
Yeah, well, I'm a CPA, have a little firm in Blanding, Utah, where I started it over 30 years ago. My wife Jody and I have 5 kids and 17 grandkids, and
You guys do not look that
right?
seasoned.
Our kids are competitive. So one says they're going to have a baby, and all of them have to jump in, and it's really a blessing. And 2 of our oldest boys, well, 2 oldest boys moved back to Blanding about a year and a half ago. One is an orthopedic surgeon. His little brother's a doctor, and we're really proud of him. But they brought 8 beautiful grandkids with them, and it had 1 more. So that's been really life-changing for us in Blanding. And honestly, that's what drives all of my interest is my community and the people that I care about, my kids and my family. Ran for county commission in San Juan County, was there for 8 years, and then in the state legislature for 6 years. And really it's the frustration of seeing kind of the weaponization of the Bureau of Land Management that frustrated me in my town, and now seeing some of the collusion between large donors and lobbyists with legislators and the governor's office that kind of prompted me to run for governor. So that's where I'm at now.
Wow.
In a nutshell.
Wow.
I'm so excited you're running for governor. So excited.
Oh, good. Thank you. Yeah.
Well, and it's interesting to me because usually the people that I who have not that every candidate doesn't have some form of conviction, but everybody has a reason how they got here, and it's always interesting to see and hear the story of kind of like a domino effect hitting you this way and this way and this way. Now you're running for governor.
Right.
How has running for governor impacted your family?
Well, I can't. My kids are all out of the house, so Jody and I are empty nesters, and but I talked to each one of them and asked if they were okay with that. We've been through a lot as a county commissioner. I was prosecuted by the federal government for a politically motivated, nonsensical charge, but it was a pretty big ordeal. So they've been through some stuff before, and they stood by us. We had 3 of our kids get married while I was being prosecuted and going to jail, and things like that. And it drove kind of a conviction for them as well. To stand up for the truth regardless of the consequences. So running for governor, they just were okay with it. I think I might sneeze.
Oh, no, that's
Bless you.
Excuse me.
I really love that our family has definitely had our own experiences that have stirred that fight and that drive to want to know what's going on and what are the rules of engagement and how did they become the rules of engagement and who are the powers that get to decide the rules. We're actually in something like that currently with our family, so I can empathize.
For some people it's abstract, and for those that it's not abstract, that they've actually experienced something. It might be that the IRS was weaponized against them, or that the State Tax Commission, or or DCFS, people that have had experience with authority, that people that are supposed to serve, that instead go after you. Then it becomes very real to people.
Yeah.
And those that haven't had that, honestly, some of them have a hard time convincing that government would ever do anything less than virtuous.
Well, and I appreciate that because I've heard candidates say, like, I'm retired and I don't have anything else to do, and I've had leadership positions. I'm like, awesome. So you're like, you just decided to fight for liberty because you have nothing else to do. I mean, that's not very motivating for me as a voter, or comforting,
Right.
and just the fact that this is something very intimate and personal to you, that you have been doing the homework and therefore the work, is really telling to me. Did you have a question?
No.
Okay, so I want to talk about 10th Amendment, because I was talking to the AG candidates about this, because I'm curious. We've been talking a lot about states' rights versus federal rights, and how do you not? It seems more and more that those boundaries are being bled, and so you don't know. It seems like candidates or our elected officials don't know what
the line
what is the
Yep.
jurisdiction for the states, what is the jurisdiction for the federal, and then just going to the 10th Amendment. So 10th Amendment just says those rights not enumerated in the Constitution belong to the states.
Right.
So what are states'
belongs to the
rights?
states?
Yes, what are state rights?
Everything that was not specifically and delegated to the federal government, which is everything else.
Yes.
And so you look at the things that were delegated to the federal government, things like printing currency and overseeing the currency, protecting our borders, declaring war, and all of those things they're doing a really, really bad job of. So I think the federal government looks and say, well, we're doing a crappy job of this. Let's take over education in the states. Let's take over their energy. Let's take over their food and everything else. None of it's done in an organic, natural fashion. So I'm kind of I subscribe to Adam Smith, economist. The old and
Wealth of Nations.
yeah, right. Thank you.
You're such a dork.
Yeah, and in that he says the only thing required to take a society from barbarism to opulence is peace, easy taxes, and a tolerable administration of justice. Everything else coming about in the natural course of things.
Tolerable administration of justice.
Right.
Interesting.
So you look, do we have peace? Not really. Do we have easy taxes? Not really. Do we have a tolerable administration of justice? No, we don't. So we passed that off ramp way back. But then when he says everything else coming about in the natural course of things, I look at the stuff, it's like, this is not the natural course of things. Massive illegal immigration is not the natural course. I understand people wanting to move to America, but these are people who want to bring fentanyl and do human trafficking and do criminal activity in America. The cartel, colluding with politicians at the CIA and whatever else to facilitate this whole hostile takeover is not the natural course of things. And who's going to step into that gap if it's not the states themselves or the people?
Right.
Which is the 10th Amendment.
Yes. Yeah. So just to the people really quickly, because we talk about this all the time because we're staunch U.S. Constitution girls. How do we invite the ordinary citizen to understand rights? Because here in America, we talk about First Amendment rights all day, every day, right? But when it comes to state rights, and I think that's why a lot of these have been blurred, because we don't know and we're not raising the red flag when those rights have been impeded on, and so now we have other people just making decisions that they actually don't have the authority to do. And I don't know how to invite other people to that conversation without sounding like a crazy. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like the person on the corner, like,
Wearing the
U.S. Constitution. It's the U.S. Constitution. And it's kind of a hard sell, but it shouldn't be.
We do have to be able to articulate it, because the other side is really powerful at articulating why we should look to the federal government as the source of all of our blessings and all of our money and all of our power.
Is it?
No.
Oh.
No, they're very good at
How come we're not good at articulating that?
Well, I think we are better than we give ourselves credit for. So we have to keep trying. And back to the 10th Amendment, and I've been thinking about this. Where it says all the remaining rights are reserved to the states or to the people. I was in a discussion the other day, and they said, well, which is it, the states or the people? And it's like, no, that is a state. The state is the people. So it's saying the state and the people are one and the same. The federal government is not the people. It's not the state. And we look at it and say, well, we're from America. We're all the United States. We're part of one big happy nation. And that narrative itself, and then we're a democracy, and we're gonna, all these things, they undermine the idea that states are sovereign, because the people are sovereign, and that's their extension. The state has to be the voice, and if necessary, the arm of the people to defend their rights against encroachment from the federal government.
Yes.
And at the state level, you have all levels. You got the executive, the legislative, and the judicial branches. In the state, you've got the county governments that ought to be empowered, and instead you get this, like, everything gets like mushed together, and pretty soon people don't respect parenthood.
Yeah.
They don't respect the parents'
Yeah.
rights. And why would they? Because they don't respect statehood. They don't understand anything. We get like in this weird place, and
Yeah, because it's lacking order.
yeah, and then you see the response to COVID, or even like the nonsense of all of the 2020, response, and people going to jail, and you find out, well, there is a downside to not having a foundation, and it's that things fall apart. And they are falling apart right in front of us. The $35 trillion in national debt, and shutting down our energy production, and these policies, they end up having devastating impacts on people. And when they experience those themselves, or close to those that experience it, they're starting to wake up.
So obviously, you know that we are Pacific Islanders, and I don't know if you get to see many Pacific Islanders. What would you say to our community?
I would rather be spending more time in the Pacific Islands. That would that's a good, yeah.
How do you help them to feel like they are being represented as well? Because I think that the that maybe many would probably lean toward the Democratic side instead of the Republican. But I think that I know that most of the values that they treasure, that they love, are found within this party, with regard to taking care of families, supporting or just keeping our family units close.
Yeah. Well, in Utah, and I have had a lot of dealings with the Pacific Islanders in Utah, the poly community, and that's what you do observe, that they are very family oriented. They're very independent. People, wherever you're at on the political spectrum, freedom is freedom, and people want to be able to do things that they think is right. They want to raise their kids the way they want to raise their kids without being judged and evaluated. And in the Polynesian community, again, the ones that I'm dealing with, incredible business people, incredible commitment to community, and you see that. It's like they don't do stuff just to make money. They do it to give back to their community, and they're always talking about that. I grew up next to the Navajo reservation, and you see some similarities there. It's like they care about their elders. They are not going to leave people by the wayside. And you also see the Democrats move in and convince them, oh, you should be voting Democrat because Republicans are racist and they don't care about people or whatever. And the truth is, well, I guess really the truth is the Republicans have not had a great track record of respecting individual rights either.
Yeah.
They should do better. We should be a non-interventionist party and respect rights, whether it's the parents' rights or the kids' rights or the businesses' rights. But definitely we're better than the left, and should be better than we are, I guess.
I was just thinking about going back to articulation. So culturally, we are a storytelling people, and that's actually how we remember all of our genealogy, is through our storytelling. So that's why we sing, that's why we dance,
That's
because it's all of our genealogy.
Very much like the.
And I was just
Navajo,
thinking,
yeah.
I think that what the Republican Party, in my opinion, needs to work on is storytelling. And we are really good at telling you dates and facts and policy and code and legislation and things like that, but just bringing that heart and the mind together in the same space. I think we miss that, and therefore we miss that connection of genealogy, because for us, our Constitution is literally a living Constitution. It's in our Tamokos, it's in our reo, in our language, it's in our genealogy,
it's in our dance, it's in
and I really hope to bridge that, because I was just thinking, what would you say would be like the common principle of all cultures? I was just thinking that in my head, and for me it would be liberty, because
That's what I was going to say.
It's not an American brand. That is every civilization from the beginning of time, and they have either lived or abolished and then declined, with or without it. wanted to ask you just really quickly, just to shift. Let's go back. So, what does the state of Utah, if elected as governor, what is your hope for the state, and hope for the people of the state moving forward? Because there's just a lot of crazy things happening in the world and in the country today, and I for sure want somebody at the helm of my state who is staunch and has those convictions and is not going to bend to emotions and can discern from emotions and principles, because I think I see that happening all the time. So what do you see moving forward if elected?
Right. So, we talk about the proper role of government, but there's a lot too. A Republican form of government that every state is guaranteed by the fourth article of the Constitution, guarantees to every state a Republican form of government. That means that the people are in charge, and we believe the Declaration of Independence when it says that governments derive their just powers from the consent of the governed. I mean, it's like foundational, and like you said, it's not just foundational in our documents; it's foundational to us as human beings. That's what the Magna Carta was about. That's what the big epic battles have been ordinary people standing up and saying, even kings have to obey the law, and the laws made by the people. So it's funny in America that we have drifted so far from it. Bringing it back as a governor, the first thing I'd want to do is put the executive branch, which the governor is the head of the executive branch, in its proper lane. And it's a very powerful lane. It can do a lot of things. But what it shouldn't be doing is meddling in legislative branch. So get a strong legislative branch doing legislative duties. Get a strong separate the powers, and then with the federalism, understand the difference between the federal government's lane. What is your job, and everything else that was reserved to the states, all of the jurisdiction of the land in Utah, technically was transferred at statehood in 1896 when that boundary was created, and we don't act like it. We don't behave as if we have jurisdiction.
Why is that?
The ownership never transferred, so that's probably one thing. Is people say, well, the federal government owns the land, therefore they can do whatever they want. But there was a big report done in 1956, the Eisenhower report, that says the federal government has jurisdiction over forts, arsenals, dockyards, other needful buildings, post offices, Hill Air Force Base, but all the rest of the domain is 100% under the jurisdiction of the states. But we don't assert that when it comes to our energy production. We defer to the federal government, and the federal government's glad to step in and start dictating what sheriffs can and can't do. Sheriffs are elected by the people. They're the ones they are the only elected law enforcement officer, and any power that could be used against the people should be delegated by a voice of the people themselves by election. It's a beautiful thing. It's a county government is a powerful thing, but the state is overriding the county governments. We're centralizing control of the water, control of the assessor's office, control of the clerk's offices, control of the sheriffs. So I guess it's a natural tendency if you're in a position of authority to want to draw more of the power underneath you. And that's what I see happening with this current administration at the state level. And I would be the opposite. I would say push this power back to the counties, back to the parents, back to the communities. The idea of getting rid of school districts and letting parents run their local schools would be an amazing transformation. And we say, well, why couldn't that happen? It's like, I think it could happen. I don't know why we have this structured oversight of people's lives.
Okay, so I do have a question. Wait, can I just ask something?
Oh my gosh. Just really, really quick. Well, because I just want to make a comment. I just want to make a comment. I love that simply because civic engagement is everything to me.
What engagement?
Civic engagement. Yeah. And to me, because civics is about identity, belonging, connection, family, because it's all about core principles. It just gets back to the soil. And I love that what you're trying to do is to engage the soil again. And I feel like that is what has, let me just talk about an olive tree in a certain book. There's a disconnect between the roots and the branches because the branches became lofty and they forgot the genealogy between the two. And so what did the tree do? It bore bad fruit. And, and I just love that. I look for those candidates who understand that genealogy because many of them just want to be the answer. Just come to me and you'll have good fruit. Just come to me and you won't even have to water the soil. I'll be the sun. I'll be the moon and the rain. I'm like, you can't be that because you don't have the jurisdiction, or in Polynesia, we
Mm.
would say the mana. You don't have the mana
You don't have the authority.
to do that, and you shouldn't, because there are other people in place to take that mana and uphold it, because you can't be everything. Because when you try and be everything, then nothing, everything is done very poorly.
Right.
Sorry.
No, I love that.
So I only had one question. What is the proper role of state government?
So Alexander Hamilton made a statement that I love, and it was more specific to legislators. But he said state legislatures shouldn't be not only vigilant but jealous and suspicious guardians of the rights of the people against federal encroachment. And this is Alexander Hamilton, who was a federalist,
Right.
nationalist kind of a guy, and he's saying, look, we're going to, as a federal government, we're going to push to take everything we can take, and it's the state's government to push back to preserve the rights, the freedoms, and the Constitution, the preamble, all of these things were to secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity. So all of those branches of government, federal government is supposed to be looking out for us too, and they have in the past with some states that were like, they went off the rails and they were taking away people's literal freedom, taking away their rights, and the federal government stepped in and said, hey, we don't do that in America. That was proper. But so often you see it the other way, the federal government stepping in and taking away people's livelihoods and shutting down their industries. The war, I would say the war on coal is not a war on coal, it's a war on America, because the same people that are pushing that are building coal-fired power plants in China and
Right.
oil.
Anyway, you just made me, while you were talking, I was just thinking about when you go to the gym and you see like somebody who's just like so ripped, and then their skinny legs. And I feel like the ripped is like the federal government, and the skinny legs are the states. Like they have not been working out. They have been like skipping leg day for like 200 years.
Come on, dude.
Like that looks a little bit off balance, and it doesn't look very good either. And ultimately you can tell when it comes down through policy, because then it directly impacts the people. And then we're like, well, there's an imbalance here. What's going on?
Right.
I just want to say thank you.
Yeah. Well, I actually just want to ask one more question, because this is my favorite question to ask. And it's just one of those, a question from the soil. So what is a principle? What principles are non-negotiable? And how can the residents of Utah know that you will not compromise principle?
There's probably a lot of things I could say, but personhood, to recognize that a person has rights simply inherent because of their existence is really, really powerful. The Declaration of Independence, says, we hold these truths to be self-evident. People have unalienable rights: life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. And if you don't respect that, then you probably aren't going to respect parenthood and the right of parents to raise their children. And if you get that wrong, you get basically everything wrong. Then everything turns on its head. So liberty, the Constitution, the principles that are embodied in the Constitution, the Declaration of Independence, those things I think are non-negotiable to me. And what it kind of comes down to, what is your vision of the American dream? And for me, my vision really is to have, to live in a place, in a community where people can have a job, a car, a house, raise a family that cares about each other. And what could they get more than that if they had $1 billion? Nothing. That's to me, that is the American dream. I look at some of the other aspiring government programs, and they're to get $1 billion companies here, or Major League Baseball, or the Olympics, or the presidential debates, and all these things. It's like we're chasing big money. And I think if we get back to the basic principles that people are free, they live a good life, they have children and grandchildren, and like the Constitution says, our posterity. And so this is a long answer, I'm sorry, but
No.
My wife Jody.
Well, and the genealogy takes a long time.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's stories. They take a while.
It is. But you're explaining principle in it as well, so I appreciate all of that.
So my wife Jody started a thing she called it Cookies in the Constitution when our grandkids moved back, and I called it the Cousin Caucus.
That's so cool.
It is so cool. But the first thing was memorize the preamble to the Constitution. And so so as you watch your little grandkids recite the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, it's like, well, that is my posterity, and their posterity is going to be in a better shape because they're learning
And
the
that
same
hits
principles.
different.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
yeah, no, it's beautiful. I mean, relationships are so amazing, and life is really great, and we live in a beautiful state. And then when you see policies that are basically undermining that, it makes me really, really uncomfortable.
Yeah, because it is an attack on the soil,
It's,
and therefore an attack on your grandbabies and your posterity.
yeah, I love that.
You know, and
An
at
attack
least
on personhood.
and at least for us in Polynesia, you know, they are our wealth. You know, I think every culture would support that, and so I just love that. I know that you're getting teary-eyed, and I'm getting teary-eyed. My sister's getting teary-eyed. But I just want to just give the last pitch to.
I do that all the time. So I
Yeah,
don't.
no, that's good. Okay, good. So we have state convention coming up next week, and so originally, so just talk about going convention and signature, but now just going straight convention, and then just your last pitch to why people should consider you,
Okay.
why people and their families and their grandchildren and
the
their
entire state of
future
Utah, yes.
should consider Phil Lyman.
So on the signature route, that was an option at the beginning. You could do both, the convention and signature route. 4 years ago, when people put in to just do the convention was canceled, and because of COVID, and the caucus meetings were canceled, and we didn't elect new delegates. And I thought, well, that's a big risk to take if something like that were to happen again. Not that I expected it, but it felt options are worth a lot, and I thought I need that option at least through the caucus night. And when the caucus seemed to go, according to schedule, then we dropped our signature path. So I'm convention only at this point. I asked the party if they would consider not endorsing any candidate that got signatures, and they said they wouldn't do that because they'd have to do their own primary, a few things like that. So the party could do something to fix that. The legislature could do something to fix that. They haven't.
Yeah.
So it puts a person who's running for office in an awkward spot. Someone says,
Yeah.
well, it's hypocritical to be against signatures and then get signatures. And I said, well, I think it's hypocritical to run for office and then unilaterally disarm at the beginning of that process.
Yes.
And to say, I'm earnest about winning this race, but I'm not going to use these tools that are
Yes,
available.
we were
to
just
me. So,
talking about that on our drive here. Did you see
Yeah.
Tusher's bill this
Yes.
last session?
Mhm.
And it didn't even I don't know that it even made it out of committee or the House, but
I told a few of my colleagues that I won't sign any bills as governor until they bring me one to repeal SB 54. That it does need to go away, and it's dramatically reformed politics in,
Oh, you have made
Utah.
a fan out of her.
Okay.
that
So
is
yeah,
so
so-
awesome.
So yeah, I really resent that our party is being dictated to by anybody outside the party, the
Yeah.
legislature or anything
Well,
else.
and
right?
it's kind of a conflict for me when I know that Governor Cox was lieutenant governor when it was signed and passed into law, and so I was just talked about this. Like, I don't know that he would repeal, a law that was passed under his administration. I
You-
just feel like that would be like a little bit
you-
conflicting for him.
I get out and talking with the delegates, and almost nobody likes SB 54, but you get on the other side of the wall inside the Capitol complex, and there's very few people who have much will to get rid of SB 54.
Really?
Yeah.
You know why? It's because their legs are chicken. You have chicken legs, and you have been skipping leg day for
day.
200 years.
Yeah.
Okay? Anyways.
Leg day. I'm gonna
Yeah. Okay, so last word.
go to the gym.
Last word for the people. Yes, go to the gym.
Go to the governor. No,
anything
not-
else?
Go to the civic engagement gym.
Yeah, come and check Phil out. What's your website?
Lyman for Utah, FOR, lymanforutah.com.
And he's also on Instagram.
Yep.
Thanks for answering my message or whoever did that. And check out state convention. Even if you're not a delegate, you can go to state convention and just see what it's all about. Come ask him questions. He's been everywhere. And if you don't have a sign, get a sign. Lyman for Utah. Okay. Thanks, Phil.
Thank you. You guys are awesome. Thank you.
Ka kite ano, o whalahi atu.
Ka kite ano o whai atu.